here. Tonight's show, it's, well, first off, it's April 2016. And so we got some people in the chat tonight. We've got Beard Botnik, Ron Cole, we've got Janet, and we've got, where's my chat at here? We got Showbiz Pizza, Jason Morrow. Beard Botnik says he's working on some puppets, some basic puppets to get a workflow down and whatnot, he says, and for practice. And let's see. So Janet says she has possibly some more films to share from Poland, which is nice. And so Janet, you say you don't have friends. Well, you've got friends here, that's for sure. We're all pretty close in the stop motion community. So welcome to our little group. Welcome, Gabriel. Nice to meet you. Okay, so for tonight's show, got some things lined up. Not a lot of stuff, but we can talk about these things for a very long time. Hi, Nick. Welcome to the show again. Nick Hilligas is here. Okay, let me see. Where's my... I don't know why my screen is doing that. All right. Well, anyways, first things first. So on our website, it seems like some people might be having problems signing up. We have some spam filters on here, and when you sign up, it might be difficult to join, it turns out. So somebody tried to sign up, and when they signed up, they got this message that they were spamming on the site, but they actually weren't. So it's not a perfect system, and so I'm trying to work it out with this one person who's trying to sign up and find out if many other people are having the same problem. So if you are having problems trying to become a member on the site, I do apologize for that, and I am trying to resolve that. And if worst comes to worst, I can remove that entire spam filter for the entire site. The only problem is we were getting spammed like maybe 2 or 3 times every day. But if using the spam filters prevents new people from signing up, then it's actually, it's good in one way, but not good in another, right? So trying to work that out, and just want to let you guys all know that. I'm just going to close this. All right, so tonight's show, I want to start off talking about how to paint things for stop motion, and what is that? Oh, yeah, Ron Call was working on a Nightmare Before Christmas bone deer. That's right, which is really awesome. And we showed some pictures in the past of that, which it looks pretty much like an exact replica. I mean, Ron is amazing at what he does. So anyway, so painting, right? Painting is a major thing in stop motion, and either you're painting a puppet, or you're going to paint your sets, or you're going to paint props, or 3D printed parts that you make, things like that. Anything that you can cast, or buy as a material usually has to be colored in some way. And I don't really know. I mean, there's stop motion films where I think recently I saw one guy who was making like a stop motion film, and everything in the background was very simple. All it was white paper, and it had like lines, black lines drawn on, well, he took the paper and he folded it into like tables and chairs, things like that. And then he would take a black magic marker and draw lines on all the edges. And it looked pretty cool. It was almost like a comic strip, but it was 3-dimensional. So really neat effect. And he was trying to make it look very flat. So in that sense, you're not going to, if you're going to do a film like that, obviously you don't need to paint everything. But if you are, the way that I learned how to paint stuff, miniatures, was when I was a kid. I was about 16 years old, and we had these Warhammer characters that were, I went to this one store with my dad. It was called the Fantasy Shop in St. Charles, Missouri, and they had these little like metal pewter figures. And when I was even younger still, there was a store called Luann's in New York in the mall, and they used to sell these pewter cast like wizards and dragons and things, and I thought they were really cool. But they were never part of anything. They were just cast pewter. And then when we came to Missouri, this shop that caters to Warhammer type products, they had, walls of these things. I was like, oh my God, I'm in heaven. All these little miniature sculptures that are so cool. And they had skeletons, and they had like, guys riding, like, instead of horseback, they're riding on some kind of lizard characters, and all kinds of weird weapons and stuff. And so the way that Warhammer used to promote their products at the time was to offer these like free. And they weren't really magazines. They were just like maybe 5 pages. They were like a 5-page magazine, and in it they would have these tips on how to build miniatures, how to paint their figures, and all that kind of stuff. And it all kind of sparked my imagination. And they also had a lot of drawings and stuff and art, and just there was like a lot of creativity around this stuff that really drew me in. So for example, you would see a box like this of characters, and I don't know how large this is, but I always thought, wow, the way that they painted these things is the most beautiful paint job in the world. Like, how did they do that? It's so small and it looks so amazing. And I had no idea. Before I had learned how to do this, the best I could do was paint something one color, and that was it. You buy paint, let's say it's green, and you paint the part green, and you're done. That's pretty much what I knew when I was very, very young. So these magazines that they offered, I'm not really sure. They have some art here. They had all these paintings and stuff, and I never knew how to paint either. And of course, I know Ron Cole is here. Ron Cole is like an expert painter, so this is probably all. This is all like, basic for him too. But so let me see if I can show you guys. Maybe here's a more detailed picture. And I know we've kind of talked about this in the past. These kind of characters, because, like I said, this is how I learned. And here you can see one of these characters is blown up super big. And so I'm going to tell you guys the secret to making something look like this. And it looks a little bit weird blown up, but when you see it shrunk down, you notice that there's a lot of different highlights and everything in here. And being that these figures are so small, and that a lot of stuff in stop motion is also small, these are tricks that are used in almost, how many hundreds of stop motion films, well, maybe not hundreds, but a lot of stop motion films have used these techniques. And so there's different ways. Now, the first thing is, usually when you make something that's small, you usually want to make it so that you can get your paintbrush into every part. And so one of the things that I like to do if I'm making a prop for stop motion is to make sure that I can get my paintbrush where it needs to go. And I see a lot of people, and I've seen, like that. There's a YouTube channel called Tested, where, what's the guy's name? Is his name Jamie? I think his name is Jamie. I forget now. He was from MythBusters, but he has these model kits that he likes to buy, and they're similar to this, but they're much larger in scale. Now these here are maybe, I don't know, an inch and a half tall or so. So you're looking at a very small. This is like maybe less than a quarter of an inch for this entire head. But when you make larger stuff, like a model kit, there's so much more complexity. And if you ever go to the hobby shop and you see something like a Star Wars model kit and you want to paint it, you'll notice that there's like a cockpit with all these little, hard to reach places with either an airbrush or a paintbrush. So you sometimes want to take and disassemble your kit, or paint parts of your kit and then assemble it later so that you can get your paintbrush in the cockpit and then insert the cockpit later and then put your canopy on there with the plastic cover and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Adam Savage, that's his name. Adam Savage, yes. Man, I am so bad with names. So with these little figures, the arms are things that you can glue on separately, and the base is something you can glue on separately. Now, what a lot of people do is they'll want to first figure out if their paint job is going to be a scheme that is dark or light. And so something like this, if the majority of what you're painting is going to be dark, or have a lot of black in it, you can actually use different kind of primers on your parts. So something like if you're making a Sculpey sculpture of, let's say, a miniature toy for your characters to play with as a prop, you want to make sure that there's, like I say, you can get your paintbrush in there. You want to disassemble everything. You want to then spray paint it with a primer that's either dark or light. So if the prop is, let's say, a teddy bear, it's probably going to be light in color. So you want to use like a white primer. There's different kinds of primers. There's primers for plastic. There's primers for metal to prevent rust and stuff. Primer is essentially a sticky substance that gets sprayed onto a surface that paint would normally not stick well to. So you have something that's super sticky in terms of on the molecular scale. When you spray it on there, it goes into the pores of the wood or the plastic, or gets within the crystal structure of the metal as best as it can, and it prevents the paint from chipping off. And I've painted Sculpey with just plain old acrylic craft paints. And believe it or not, Sculpey does not, the acrylic will stick well to the Sculpey, but if you're making like a stop motion prop where it's going to be handled a lot, sometimes the paint will rub off. So primer is a really good idea to use for painting your props and things. So these here were plastic, and it appears that this person used a black primer spray. And you can see that everything here is black, everything here is black. There's a lot of black around his waist. There's black within his teeth. There's black in his eyes. And that's, one of the techniques that they use for, or teach for these Warhammer characters. Also, you'll notice that like the reds here are actually kind of dark. So that's another clue that he used black as a primer. So when you start to paint your characters, you can use different types of paints. You can use oil-based paints. You can use water-based, and there's also ink washes. There's all kinds of products. I tend to use mostly acrylic paints for most of what I need to paint, but I found that if you're going to paint something like a puppet's eyeballs, and that puppet's eyeballs are going to be moved around in a socket, either clay or plastic socket. A lot of times acrylic will rub off on your either glass beads for your eyes or if they're plastic. Acrylic just does not stick well to a lot of things. So in those cases, Testors enamel paints are actually excellent for that. So here, now you'll notice that there's different colors. There's different greens, and there's also shades of green here. So what they've done, you can see on the arm here pretty clearly. Let me see if I can zoom in some more. Now I'm zooming in so you can see this, but most of the time you almost can't tell that this is done this way when you're just looking at a figure that's really tiny. And what they've done is they've mixed up, they've taken their green color of paint and they've painted a large area first. And then after they paint that area, they want to make a highlight. So they'll mix in either some white or some yellow with the green, and then they'll make it a slightly lighter shade, and then they'll repaint the part, but just in a smaller area, so that there's like a ring of darker green on the outside, and you can see the lighter is on the inside. And you can do this in as many layers as you want. You can do this in like 3 to 5 layers of paint that you've mixed. So you're constantly mixing up lighter and lighter shades of green and putting them in smaller and smaller areas, making the smallest area on the highest part of your piece. So for example, if you can see on the tips of the ears where you would have the most light bouncing off, they've made it the lightest shade. The eyebrows and also like the nose and the cheekbones have all this lighter paint. So that is one technique you can use for painting stuff and making it more realistic. And you can see they've not painted on the black primer, so you've got this neat little outline on these characters. So there's some other ways you can paint these, and this is only, like I say, one way. And I'm not really sure if I can find any examples of this. Might be, no, I'm not sure. But there's other ways to do the same sort of thing, and there's a simpler way. So I think this might be one of the ways. This might be one where they've done the technique, and that is to dry brush your characters. Now, dry brushing is just a way of trying to hit all your highlights. So what you do is you would first paint your prop with one color of paint. So let's say you want like this is green. Again, skin is green on this character. So you paint all those parts green, and it's one shade. There's no different colors there. And then you will take a paintbrush, which is not so important to you because dry brushing will actually destroy your paintbrushes. And so you want a paintbrush which is a little bit maybe old, is a little bit wide also. You don't want to use too narrow of a paintbrush. And you want it to be a little bit stiff. So if your paintbrush bristles are a little bit too long, if you try this technique, it might not work because the length of the bristles, if they're too long, will go into the crevices as opposed to sweeping over just the top of the surface where the high spots are. So you take your brush and you dip it in a lighter shade of green, and this one here I think was dry brushed, and the reason why I say that is because you'll notice that there's not a lot of different variety of greens in the skin tones. Okay, so you take your brush and you dip it in your lighter color of green paint. So you can, like I said, you can either mix in your white, or if you want it to be like a yellow green color, you can mix in some yellow, or you can even depends on what it is, but you can do a lot of lighter colors and get some weird effects. But whatever the lighter shade is that you want, it could even be just plain old white. You dip your paintbrush in the paint, and then you wipe off the bristles on a paper towel to where they're almost dry, and that's why they call it dry brushing. And you test on let's say a scrap piece of plastic or something. You test it out to make sure that when you roll the bristles over your part, that there's not too much paint on your bristles, because if there is and you paint over it, you basically take something that's green, and instead of making different shades of green, you make it all the second color, which would be white. And you don't want to paint your green white. You want it to be in shades. So as you can see on like his knuckles here, you'll see that there's like one lighter shade, and if you take your bristles and you go across in this direction back and forth over the knuckles or whatever details you're trying to highlight, like I say, the bristles will just touch those high parts and not go into those deep crevices. Now you don't want to go in the direction of the crevices on your parts. You want to go sort of like with wood, you want to go across the grain, so that the bristles will highlight all those high parts and not go in the deeper parts. So that's pretty much how you dry brush. And the other thing, let's bring up another picture. Another technique, and this might be a good one to look at for, let's see if they used any of these techniques here. Okay. So here's some sort of like tank. I don't know what this is. It's another orc type vehicle. And you'll notice there's a lot of stuff going on here now. I'm not sure if this is the best example. No. But I do know one example where we can talk about this next technique. And I think Ron Cole would probably like this. Let's see. Yeah. Totally spelled millennium wrong there. Alright, so this is another technique, and it's been used in you know, sci-fi films forever, and people that make fine scale models and all that sort of thing. Let's go here, large picture. Okay. Let's see if this is a large picture or not. Okay, and okay, here we are. Let's see. So here's you know, the iconic Millennium Falcon, and let's see. This is actually, this is not the best example. Let's see. See if they have a top-down view, if I can find one. All right, maybe this one. All right. Well, anyways, I don't know if this is, it's not working for me. Sometimes these pictures will load up and they won't become large, even if you click on the little plus sign there. All right. Well, anyway, so you can see there's a lot of shading within this model, and you'll notice that there's weathering, there's some browns, there's some blacks. So you kind of assume that there's some rust and maybe some oil leaking. There's also you know, there's like these blast marks. There's exhaust, it looks like, coming out of here, and there's, you know, it's kind of flowing backwards. There's like stippling. There's all these little, you know, marks, and there's a lot of character in this. One of the techniques that they'll use for painting stuff like this, besides using an airbrush and masking tape and all those sort of things, is to do washes. And a wash is essentially what it is you can either, if you're using something like acrylic craft paints, which are water-based, that allows you to essentially take your paint and thin it down until it's almost clear if you want it to. So you can make a very, very thin version of the paint that you have. Now, if you're using, let's say, Testors enamel paints, you can also thin those down as well. So if you want to thin it down, you just, you use paint thinner. You would take a few drops of, let's say, black or brown or whatever dark color. And most of the time, washes are dark colors, okay? Because what happens is they'll flow into all the crevices wherever you put them. And there's also different methods of applying a wash. Now, if you're just using acrylic craft paints, which are the most common things, you would use water, and then you would thin it down until it's almost like an ink, and it's very, very fluid. And then you can take a paintbrush that is very fine, has a very pointy, thin end to the bristles, and you can load up some of your very thin paint. Then you would touch it at the top of your part and allow it to flow down. Now here you can see there's a wash, and I'm going to try and zoom in here if I can. Is this going to work? Okay. Kind of bigger? I can't. Okay. So if you see here, there's this like a pipe or something coming on the side, and it branches off. And you'll see here there's like this little dark wavy line going along the edge of this pipe. Okay, so that's a wash. And also you can see the same thing like here in these cracks or all these little dark areas. And so that's where they've probably taken some enamel paints and thinned them down with paint thinner. And they will start at the top and they'll touch the paintbrush here and allow that that very thin watery mixture to flow right into that crack. And due to the action of the surface tension of the water and whatnot, it'll actually kind of stay in the crack. And after it kind of flows in there, you can take your paintbrush with just plain paint thinner or just plain water and clean up that edge and make sure that it's close into those cracks and it's not, puddling where it should not be, pooling and puddling and making a mess. So that is how you do a wash. And you can do that over a broad area. You can do it over a small area. So if you had, like, for example, here's a grill, this sort of grill in here, and you want it to have all of this dark in there, you could actually just take your paintbrush with your thinned down mixture of paint and touch it all along this entire grid and let it flow into the whole thing at once. You don't have to do just like one at a time. And then when you're done, if you want to, if you get some paint on the higher parts, you can, before the paint dries, you can take a paper towel or a dry paintbrush and just rub over the surface and rub off any paint that's on there. And that's how you you clean up your paint and make it so that only the dark part or the deep parts are dark. And I'm sure they pretty much did that, throughout this entire model, especially like in these sort of jointed areas. And the amount of detail in a model ship like this is just immense. And they don't make them this way anymore. I guess the latest Star Wars films, they did all computers, but they still had to use the same exact principles in computerized versions where you airbrush and you mask off parts in essence and fill in cracks with darker colors. And it's all the same, but it's all digital now, which is maybe fun for some people, and they like to do that. So but let me see if there's any other examples I could show. Let's see. What would be a good one? Maybe. Oop. Okay, let's see. So the original AT-AT walkers from Empire Strikes Back, and Ron Cole was mentioning Empire Strikes Back before. These are an awesome example of, let's see here, if I can get a good picture. Well, maybe here, this might be a good one. I think this might be a Sideshow Collectibles model kit, or model, I guess they're not actually kits. I'm pretty sure that's what this is. And, So, here we go. Let's see, control. So one final example of doing a wash would be something like this, where they'd probably used, again, enamels, and they put them in here and touched the paint to all these little cracks and made them so that these little panels will actually pop out and look, it won't look as flat as if it were just one color. You've actually made all these details pop out. And one trick that I've heard of that you can use in order to get this the enamel paints to flow better into plastic parts is to mix in with your enamel paints, specifically for enamels, You mix in some windshield wiper fluid. I think it's either that or like Windex, like glass cleaner. It's one of those two. Um, and I've also heard you can do a similar thing sometimes with alcohol and like acrylic paints. You could, because alcohol is a much more fluid substance. It's lighter than water, and if you mix them together with your paint, it actually flows a bit better. And when I say flows, when you thin out your paint and you try to get it to flow into these cracks, if the paint is thick, it'll flow, maybe halfway across this line, and then you have to, add more paint halfway for it to flow the rest of the way. But if there's more of a fluid, lighter liquid that you put in with your paint, it'll actually sometimes flow the entire distance of the line that you're trying to fill. So yeah, that's pretty much. So we got washes, we got primer we talked about, and highlights as well. So those are the components. Now, there's of course a lot of other ways to paint things. It just depends on what you're trying to do. Like if you're trying to make a film that is something like Shrek, like Shrek, the CG film. Well, that's not really a great example, but if you're trying to make something that's more along a realistic looking film, a lot of people will use more earthy tones. And if you want to make something more cartoony, you go with more primary colors and stuff like that. But the same principles apply to highlights and shadows for both. So if you go with more earthy tones, you want to use more browns and things like that. But you still need to use the same color browns to do highlights and so forth to start with. So if you use an earthy tone brown color for a character, you could use you can highlight it with red, pink, white, for fleshy colors, for fleshy tones. If it's like a tree, you can use like yellow ochre to highlight it, or yellow or white. But you never want to overdo it in a realistic setting with highlights. You always want to keep everything kind of muted, and you never add as much of a highlight to more realistic things. So if I were to look up something like tree bark, and you can actually you can study just photos of things and see what would be a good highlight color. So just for tree bark, as you can see, these are more earth tones, and you've got how many different types of shades here to look at. So we've got a gray kind of color, grayish green, and the highlight is something of like a more of a gray, lighter gray, and maybe some green in here as well. All right. So you can study, nature and try to emulate it. So we got some browns, we've got some grays, like a mossy kind of gray on there. We've got some green, and the shadow areas are essentially, just darker colors of the same thing. So you can add maybe some deeper gray or brown to something like that. And then of course here we have this, which is more of a warm tone, maybe like a cedar type tree. And here we go. So we got all these different tones, but you can see there's like an orange. The deeper colors are more orangey brown. So that's something like if I were going to paint this as tree bark, I would definitely go with that sort of a base coat. I would probably use a primer that is white. Since it's a lighter color, I would go and paint the whole thing this sort of with brownish orange tones, like terracotta, maybe I guess would be the color. And then I might dry brush it with a lighter version of that mixed with white to get these lighter tones here. And then maybe stipple on, which is another thing you can do, is to just kind of poke the end of your paintbrush partially kind of like a dry brush technique, just kind of stipple or poke those colors on these other areas. So the green would be like the last color I'd put on there. And then I would probably make one green highlight. So that kind of gives you an idea, if you don't know how something should be painted, what colors to use Google search, So tree bark. The same thing could be said for, sports cars or whatever, any kind of props you're making, or let's say like, you have like an old van as the means of transportation for your puppet. So you could do a search for old vans like this and just look around and say, wow, well, what colors could I paint my van, and what looks nice, and is it rusty? So if you wanted a really beat up van like this, maybe in the year 2030 Scooby-Doo or something, when they'd still be driving around, something like that, it'd be really rusty. There's just a lot of examples, and you can see how sometimes like mud and things and dirt kind of flows over a surface, and what it looks like. So you'll notice, like, here's a photo, and you can see in all these cracks, although this is a real van and nobody put any black paint into all of these cracks, just the way that the light is and the way that there's shadows in these cracks, you can see that you could use like a black wash in there and get the same effect on your miniature model parts. So just more food for thought. All right. So anyways, anybody have any questions about that at all? You guys have been chatting a lot, but haven't been reading what's been going on here. Oh, you're asking me what do I think about the new Jungle Book? Man, that's I did see the coming attractions, and it seems interesting. But that's all I can say about it. I don't really know much about it. Don't know much about the new Jungle Book. I don't think there's any stop motion. I'm pretty sure it's all computers. So we might take my son. My son is 7, so maybe I'll take him to see that. I see all kinds of films like that because of my son, and I miss going to see more adult films. But they don't like little kids seeing a lot of like slasher films and stuff like that. Yeah, like Deadpool, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, my sister saw Deadpool. She said it was really good. I'm not really sure I'm not like a huge comic book fan. There's only a few comic books that I actually liked when I was growing up, and I still have my Darkness collection, which is pretty cool. And Beard says, I always figured the episode 1 spaceships were all CG because of how fake the reflections and lighting seemed on them. Oh, man. Yeah. I wasn't sure when I first saw the trailer for the last Star Wars that came out. When I saw it, I wasn't sure if all of those reflections and things that looked kind of weird if they were, because of the filtering done over them to make them blend in with the live action. I thought maybe they're models, and then they've just overlaid a lot of like fog and what do you call it? Oh my god, I can't think of the name of it. Lens flare. That's sort of J.J. Abrams' weakness, and I think I read something where his wife even said, you need to cut back on all this lens flare that you're sticking on all these films, and that was one of the things that they did a lot of in the last Star Wars film. And so when you're seeing a spaceship, you're like, does that look weird because of what they've done in post-production, or what? You don't know. And then Ron Cole pointed out that they were all CG, and I thought, darn, I thought he was going to go back to practical effects, but evidently, and one of the things like that Rogue One trailer, if you guys have seen that, Rogue One that has like the Death Star, the laser beam component that goes on there. It's like a giant ring, and it's kind of moving, and it's flying into the Death Star to sort of join up with it, like they built it separately or something. And I just think that it's as something as massive as the Death Star. You know, they had this thing moving, and it's moving so fast. It just pops out as being CGI, you know, and it doesn't look real in terms of scale because of the speed at which it's moving. And so I had some gripes already with some of those things. But, you know, I don't know if they could really do that better in using models or not, you know. But I think the motion aspect of CG is sometimes so absolutely mechanical and perfect that, you know, the imperfections in the way things kind of move, and I don't know, if everything is too perfect, it just sticks out like it's a white sheet of paper, you know. It just, anyways, but maybe they'll fix that. But I'm excited about it. Rogue One seems kind of cool. I want to see that film. So now, let me see here. Messages, here we are. So I know Janet has been sending me some stuff, and we're gonna look at some let's see, inbox. So I don't know what's going on with this person. They messaged me, and then I guess they like either deleted themselves or something, and now they're just called Facebook user. I don't understand why they did that, but so they sent me some pictures last week that we looked at, and they were of these awesome looking build-up dinosaurs, and they also sent me a picture of the set being built as well. And this is from T-Rex Productions, I guess, and looks really cool. Sort of it's flat. It looks like they've used maybe some styrofoam or something, and some texture with plaster and whatnot. Looks really cool. Oh man, what am I doing here? Where is the X? I hate that. Sometimes these things, they don't actually work for me, and it defies logic. Okay, how they do this. But anyway, so he said you can watch some of our videos, and so it's T-Rex Productions, and if you guys want to find this on YouTube, it's T-Rex Productions 3190 is the username. So I'm gonna subscribe, and they've got some videos here. So let me click on their video list. And so here we are. So 6 years ago, this was one of their first videos. So let's watch this. I have not seen this, so we're gonna watch it together. Okay. The volume's on here first. Okay, here we go. Alright, so this actually looks kind of cool here. Lex Productions 99. I'm just gonna click this quickly, and well, this is interesting too. I'm gonna subscribe here. I'm gonna go back to that later. Let me open up in a new tab here so we can look at this next, maybe. How much time we have left? We only have like 15 minutes. Wow. Time has really flown by tonight. I want to show some of these Polish films here as well. But let us go to Making of Dino Ass Kickers Episode 1 here and see some behind the scenes stuff, because it looks like obviously they've improved a lot since some of their first films here. So let's go see. Alright, so definitely seems like a neat channel, and so if you guys want to see more, like I say, go to T-Rex Productions 3190, and they've got some more videos. So really impressive, and they've also got a lot of subscribers. So they're, I guess, maybe, I don't know if they've got a Kickstarter out there somewhere or something, you know, to raise money for their project, but it seems really cool. All right, and you'll probably notice that there was also a lot of painting going on there, like we were just talking about. It looks like they used a lot of washes in the dirt, and some highlights as well. So, like I say, you know, pretty much the techniques I talked about before are used quite often in really almost every form of stop motion set building and stuff. So now Janet sent in some of these videos, and there's 2 of them, and I'm pretty sure that I've never watched these before. Well, I actually did. I looked at them earlier, but I haven't watched you know, in the past, any of these films on television or anything, because they've never been translated into English, and they've never been shown in America. So these are kind of cool, and so the sort of divide between different countries that are out there is broken down by, you know, YouTube, and you can see a lot of things that really, you know, you would never see unless you lived in Poland and grew up there as a kid, or let's see how many views. There's only 104 views on this one too, so I think this one 181 views, so it's not well known. And this here is a description of, I believe, this one, which is Cirque from 1954, and it says here it's called The Legend of the Wawel Dragon, and it says, in a cave at the bottom of the Wawel Hill there once lived a terrible fire-belching dragon. This dragon roamed around the countryside and did whatever he wanted to. He ate sheep and cattle and scared the farmers so much that they didn't let their animals graze in the field near the Vistula River. And many brave knights had tried to kill the monster, but before they could get close enough to him, he blew fire on them and they were burned to death. So it's like a, you know, little fairy tale here. And here is what some of the animation looks like. So we're going to watch a few minutes of this and discuss. This is on 35mm film, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so yeah, Janet was telling me that actually that's the wrong film. It's this one here with the dragon. So let's watch some of this one here. I will fast forward a little bit. Maybe I can go to the part where he's fighting the dragon, because I did see that. I did watch some of that already. Let me see, where was it? And so the puppet fabrication techniques and everything here are pretty interesting. Let me see if I can play this now. Okay, here we go.
Siarka go pali.
Tak zginął okrutny smok, a mądry szewczyk Skuba został na zawsze ulubieńcem całego narodu.
All right, so it kind of gives you an idea of what this looks like, and what they were doing at the time in Poland, and you can see the techniques are, they didn't have a lot of things like that we have today, like 3D printing, obviously, and they didn't have a lot of the foam rubbers and for casting. So a lot of the stuff, I believe, is built up. The faces might be clay or wax or something like that. I'm not totally sure, but the result is really good, I think. So Brian was asking where you can watch these later, and I'm gonna post these in our fan page after this. So if you guys want to read the synopsis of the film here, and you want to watch also this one, which is Cirque, which is of the circus, which is actually really cool, and maybe we can watch some more of this. I'll post these in the fan page so you can see here what this looks like. And this one's a little bit more advanced, obviously a later year. All right, so that does wrap up our show for tonight, and some really awesome animation there. And I think that this is, pretty fantastic. I mean, they have a lot of motion blur. They have Showbiz is asking how they get things to float. Looks like they're using a lot of like fishing line or nylon wire or string or whatever to suspend their characters in the air. There's a lot of camera motion in this. I mean, this is a really, really amazing production for 1954. So, anyways, I want to thank you guys all for stopping by tonight and watching with us and hanging out and talking. And, all right, so I guess I'll see you guys all next week. See you later.